Animal Land by John Hauge. Chapter 2. Meet Elliot and Mari. The next morning found Ronald laying outside his father's den. It was high noon and rainy, too wet to start work on rebuilding defenses. Ronald felt especially lonely. Last night Stuart was socializing with 5 different elephanets at once. Ronald could have done the same with all of the lionesses, but this just wasn't his way. Today was time to relax and wait for dusk. From a distance, Ronald heard the sound of paws trampling the prairie grass. Another lion was approaching. His name did not come to mind, but he looked familiar. As the lion closed, his memory made a match. It was Elliot. Ronald couldn't remember Elliot ever running during the war, but now he seems to have gotten faster. Elliot slowed and then stopped in front of Ronald. There was a pause as Elliot was panting quite heavily and could not take a break to get his tongue back into his mouth long enough to form more words. Ronald, still lying down, had time to wait. Eventually, the panting lion got the rest of the words out. Alistar here? My father is inside the den. Elliot ran to the den, which was only 20 feet away. What could be so important that he could not simply walk into the den? Elliot's loud voice started to ring from the mouth of the den. As Ronald listened in, he had a flashback of a younger Elliot collapsed at the bottom of a muddy creek exhausted after an unsuccessful attempt at chasing a gazelle. Their paths hadn't really crossed much since Elliot discovered that food could be found under circling vultures and abruptly dropped out of hunter school. Reluctantly, Ronald got up and went into the den. He's already disturbed my rest. Might as well see what is so important, he thought. I said, you, just have to come tomorrow night before dusk to hear Bernard's big announcement. It's, one for the ages. Alistar was not sharing Elliot's exuberance. Why, yes, partner, you have said that it is one for the ages. What is it? That will be one for the ages. Elliot still was not recognizing the disconnect between them. Unsure what to do, he simply repeated himself. Bernard's, big announcement. Alistar tried again. What, pray tell, is so special about this here big announcement? Elliot answered again. It, will be special because, it will be one for the ages. Alistar wondered if Elliot was even hearing him. Why, yes, you have said that it is one for the ages. I can assure you I've got that part. Yet, what I have asked and what I am to find out is precisely what makes this speech one for the ages. Elliot dug deep to come up with a different reply. Because, Bernard's big announcement will make it one. Alistar looked into Elliot's eyes and at his demeanor. Alistar didn't recognize the lion. There were no leftover paint markings from the parade. Judging by the lack of scarring and the pristine state of his mane, it seemed reasonable to conclude that no oversight had been made. Still, Alistar thought he would have at least seen him in the parade audience. Elliot's face did not register in his recollection of yesterday's events. Elliot still was flexing his legs with the same frequency and amplitude as when he first came in. This made his head move up and down, but he wasn't actually bouncing. The ironic dumb look that Elliot was giving Alistar should have been easy to pick out of the parade crowd. Alistar thought of another path to question Elliot, but then opted against taking it. Some animals would get upset or frustrated at having to repeat themselves, but not Elliot. It wasn't Elliot who led on a sign of frustration, it was Alistar. As the leader of Animal Land, he was obliged to listen to all animals. Fortunately for him, Elliot was not typical of all animals. Otherwise, his stint as leader may have been much shorter. May I ask what your name is, my excited friend? I'm, Elliot. Okay, Mr. Elliot. You may pass it along to Bernard that I will be delighted to attend this here special gathering. So, you are coming, yes? Yes. With that, Elliot reversed course and ran out of the den at full speed, nearly hitting Alistar's son, Ronald, who had followed behind and witnessed some of the exchange. What was this all about? What did Elliot want? Can I reason from your question that you know of this dim-witted lion that came running into my den without introducing himself to me? After seeing a nod to the affirmative, Alistar continued. This here, Elliot, did not know. All I know is that he was not prepared to take his leave until I said the word yes. Ronald returned a small grin and then another nod to communicate understanding. His father told him many times that an education means the freedom to use as many words as you want to convey a thought. The requirement to simplify the answer to one word was an indication of the level of education Eliot had obtained to date. He tried to make his father grin as well. Too bad reproduction is an instinctive trait and not a learned one. No grin, but it wasn't a total loss. Son, every lion plays a role in animal land. Some are destined to play a smaller role, while others larger. The fact that my good friend Bernard selected to send this simple lion, Eliot, on this mission is proof that at least one other animal agrees. A son looks to a father for life lessons. In Ronald's slightly biased opinion, there was none better at teaching these than Alice Starr. Ronald didn't need help in identifying Eliot's shortcomings. However, the patience displayed by Alice Starr was noteworthy. Many others would not have been as patient. Why is Bernard making all this drama? Alice Starr now allowed a grin. Bernard has earned the right to send a lackey messenger. Your question is also the answer. Alice Starr dropped his front legs and rested his head on them. He was done spending any more energy on the conversation. The question was the answer? Ronald, of course, knew of some of the exploits of Bernard. Evidently, in his father's mind, he sent Eliot to create drama, to create some kind of mystery or intrigue as to what he wants to tell the animals of Animal Land. Bernard was as close to a legend as any animal could be. A fierce fighter, Bernard was probably the only animal in Animal Land that could defeat Alice Starr in battle despite his being old enough to be Alice Starr's father. Bernard was a cub as the last of the founding animals were dying out. He was the only animal left who actually had heard words from a founding animal. As such, he was the last living link to the oral history of Animal Land. Alice Starr's first war was Bernard's third. The two of them perfected the art of camouflage. Their specialty was allowing man to pass by them and then attack from behind. It took nerves of steel to allow man to get that close without attacking. To defeat the guns, one had to be close, and coming from behind was the best edge an attacker could get. The one thing that was for sure was that Bernard had put his life on the line in defense of Animal Land probably more times than any other animal. His devotion to Animal Land was unassailable. Omega. Across the valley, Mar-E was up and bathing in the stream that passes through the heart of Animal Land. She had a date that night with Eliot. Eliot was celebrating his new job working for Bernard. She had got to know Eliot well, as he didn't spend much time fighting in the war. He was very nice and could really appreciate the effort she made to look pretty. Mar-E's other lioness friends were resting on their bellies in the shade along the riverbank. They were up late last night chasing after the lions in the parade. The lion warrior heroes were the elite of Animal Land. To be wed to them was to become part of the elite. Mar-E got out of the water and dried off. She had to pick some flowers to adorn herself with. The riverbank was a pretty good source of wild daisies and violets. However, Eliot was tired of these flowers. He wanted her to find a yellow daffodil. She paced up and down the riverbank, looking closely at all of the flowers. Finally, one of her girlfriends, Stefani, got up to see what all the excitement was about. First bathing and now looking at flowers. Must be a date with Eliot. Yes. Stefani pointed at some flowers that seemed pretty enough that Mar-E had already passed by. What's wrong with these flowers? Mar-E turned back to see what flower Stefani was referring to. She wasn't any more impressed now than a few moments ago. Eliot is tired of white and purple. He wants to see some yellow. Mar-E, I don't see why you can't wear what you want to wear. These flowers are absolutely gorgeous. Mar-E nodded in agreement, but continued looking. I do look good wearing my favorite flowers. But Eliot knows what looks great and what only looks good, and he says that white and purple are out. This season yellow is the new in color. Stefani rolled her eyes. That's just ridiculous. The other lionesses joined the conversation. One of them put her paw on Mar-E's head and made a circle motion before addressing the others. Well, at least it is not like Mar-E's hair. Eliot isn't having her dye her fur a different color. Another lioness continued the attack. Mar-E. How come Elliot hasn't given you a petal with the exact shade of yellow to match up with? This way you will know exactly if the flowers you chose meet Elliot's specifications. The lionesses all giggled except for Mar-E. Mar-E didn't see the humor that the other cats seemed to vocalize under their smirks. She's already got that covered. Remember last week when Mar-E picked out 7 different flowers and then waited for Elliot to pick out the correct shade? Mar-E was starting to get annoyed. Come on, girls. Lay off Elliot. He just wants to make sure I look good. Another one of the girls couldn't resist chiming in. You mean he wants to make sure that his looks are not negatively impacted by your looks? Mar-E replied with a lawyer's affirmation. That's not true, girls. From Mar-E's left came a sarcastic reply. Oh, yeah. From Mar-E's right came a challenge to her not true claim. Then how come you presented to him 7 different flowers last time? From behind, in front, and all around came a chorus of demands to defend her claim. Yeah, Mar-E. Let's hear it, Mar-E. How come the 7 flowers, Mar-E? Mar-E was a bit puzzled that all of them had heard this story. She had not mentioned it to anyone. She continued her lawyerly defense. Elliot likes to have a choice to pick from. There is nothing wrong with that. More giggles emerged from the other lionesses. Stefani, as the girlfriend's ringleader, started to mimic the act of putting a flower next to her ear. The others showed a paw facing up or a paw facing down as to whether they approved. They all had paws facing down. The girlfriend mimics Elliot, replacing the flower with another flower. The others voted once more with their paws and disapproved again. It was unanimous. All of the girlfriends did not approve of Elliot's requirement that Mar-E had to wear a flower next to her ear. Mar-E countered again. He just wants us to look good. Mar-E's arguments were not swaying her friends. Finally, Stefani took the impersonation of Elliot a bit farther by singing a quick song in her best Elliot voice and acting out his mannerisms. Look at me. I'm Elliot. Not a hair out of place. Not a scratch on my hide. Because I run and I hide. That's right. I'm Elliot. The others laugh. Finally, they resumed talking about their favorite subject. Elliot is certainly not like the real lions we met last night. Talk about some hunks. Scars are sexy, remarked another girlfriend. Nobody messes with those lions from last night. I doubt they even know the difference between a flower petal and a pine cone, said another. Man faces someone like Ronald, and he flees in the other direction. Man faces Elliot, and he puts the cat in a box and takes him home for his children to play with. The visual of Elliot as a house cat was enough to elevate the giggles to outright laughter. The girlfriend who made the comment took a bow. Mar-E was the only one in the group not laughing. In a disappointed voice, she chastised her girlfriends. You girls can be really nasty. Elliot is not that bad. Mar-E, it's not that he's bad. It's just that you could do better. Mar-E went back to her lawyerly voice. Elliot is really nice. He respects me. He's not the type to have this big he-cat ego. I don't chase after lions. Lions need to chase after me, and so far, only Elliot seems interested. There was a bit of consternation in the other girls' eyes. It was a slight on their actions last night fawning over the Lion War heroes. Stefani didn't address the slight, but continued the Elliot theme. Well, if it was me, I'd pick one of those violets. It is a better color for you. You need to tell Elliot that he's dating you and not some walking corsage. Mar-E disagreed with Stefani. She wasn't really hurt by her favorite girlfriend's comment. Mar-E knew that Stefani had never really liked Elliot. Come on, girls. Let's let Mar-E continue hunting down her flowers. We need to continue hunting those Lion War heroes. We're with you, Stefani. Omega. Meanwhile, Elliot continued on his message delivery journey. His pace slowed as the elevation changed for higher. Next was Everett, the leader of the camels in Animal Land. Everett had always thought of himself above the other animals. In one sense, this was true. He made his home on a rather large landing on the way up the large bluff that overlooks all of Animal Land. The landing was not that far up, but it still yielded a pretty good view. It was surrounded by a large number of trees, so there was plenty of shade despite not having any formal hardened shelter. Most animals made their homes close to the river and tried to avoid large elevation changes. The river ran through the heart of Animal Land and was clearly the center of the community. All life in Animal Land depended one way or another on the river. Everett was not concerned about the distance between him and the river. Obviously, his anatomy limited trips to the river, and despite his advanced age, he didn't mind the distance of the walk or the climb. To Everett, having his special place outweighed these minor obstacles. Around Everett's lair was a collection of relics from the wars with man. There were binoculars, watches, rifles, clothes, flags, books, and other items. He was the leading authority on man's contraptions. For the rest of the animals, Everett's collection was just an odd hobby. Most didn't really care about things made by man. They were focused on their families, individual hobbies, and enjoying the serene periods in between the wars that brought out the best of living in Animal Land. Everett recognized man's passion to conquer. His desires were not to kill like man, but he did share man's interest in dominating animals. Everett's secret desire was to one day lead the other animals of Animal Land. Although Everett was well known as a collector, Everett was more known for his business smarts. Everett was arguably the smartest animal when it came to calculations and numbers. This gave him a special gift for business and made him a rather influential animal in Animal Land. Up until now, leading other animals in business had satisfied his dream of leading Animal Land. But with the end of another war, there is always a change in leadership. His best play to will additional influence would be to get close to the emerging winner of the next leadership change. Everett could hear some heavy panting and some fallen branches being crushed. Maybe this was one of the potential leader contenders coming up to consult with him. He looked at the path leading up to the landing. It was a lion. No animal other than a lion had ever been leader of Animal Land. Is this a challenger seeking advice? His curiosity waned as the lion got closer and he saw that it was Elliot. No, this was certainly not a potential leader coming to woo him. You're, Everett, right? Insulted, Everett did not reply. You, just have to come tomorrow night before dusk to hear Bernard's big announcement. It's, one for the ages. Everett did not reply. Bernard, is going to announce his big announcement. Everett did not reply. Elliot paused a bit to catch his breath some more and then retried at a higher volume. Bernard, is going to announce his big announcement. Everett walked away as he asked his question to send a message of how much interest he had in this conversation. I cannot commit attendance until I know what it is that he intends to announce. Bernard, is going to announce his big announcement. Still not looking at Elliot, Everett replied. I see. I thank you for further explaining the explanation. So, you'll come? No, I will not. I will, however, send a very special camel to represent me. So, this is a yes? Yes, I will send a special camel to represent me. Elliot was satisfied and left without even bothering to ask who this special camel was. The only big announcement Everett could think of would be Bernard announcing a campaign to become the next leader of Animal Land. As Everett watched Elliot stumble his way back down the path, he thought about how Bernard could make a play for leader of Animal Land. Bernard was a cunning warrior, but was also a tiger. Only lions had ever risen to become the leader of Animal Land. A tiger would still be part of the warrior class of animals, but Bernard as leader would mark a major change in the history of Animal Land. Everett never considered Bernard much of a political thinker. Sending Elliot to call on him affirmed this conclusion in Everett's mind. Although sending an idiot to announce his announcement rather than coming in person may not be a political slight, Bernard was old, very old. It could be that his age prevented him from making the trip up the hill in person. Sending Elliot definitely showed a good sense of delegation, as Elliot was the perfect messenger. He would never spoil the message, as he was too dumb to speculate why Bernard was calling for a meeting of the leading animals. Everett figured that it had to be Bernard's desire to become the next leader of Animal Land based on his conversations with Bernard at the close of the war after Bernard lost his family. Still, an aging non-lion leader could be the opportunity Everett was looking for. Breaking the lion tradition would be much harder than naming a second non-lion as leader. Bernard might be the only animal that could pull off the break in tradition. Becoming Bernard's number 2 animal might be a path to realize a new era of animal land. Omega. Elliot was happy. The work for Bernard was done. Bernard gave him a list, and he was not to break off the meeting with each of the animals until he heard a yes. Mission accomplished. He could now focus his thoughts on his girlfriend, Mar-E. He knew that Mari was getting dolled up for him, and he had to get ready himself. The trip back down the incline was far easier, but maybe it was the motivation. His den wasn't too far away. He passed through the river on the way there. There was a special rock path from the river to his den. He didn't want any mud on his paws. By traveling this way, he could remain completely dry and thus avoid having the muddy paw look when he arrived. Elliot's den was complete with a reflecting pool, a place where he could look at himself and make the appropriate corrections. Each hair had to be licked exactly into place. Each knot in the fur had to be meticulously removed. For other cats, this would seem like a waste of time. But for Elliot, looking nice was important. Within a few short hours, he had his fur just where he wanted it. Each hair aligned with the others to create his Elliot look. Elliot was licking through his claws when Mari showed up. Mari didn't have a reflecting pool, so she had to meet Elliot at his place for each date. Hi, Elliot. Mari, do you see the flowers? I sure do. Look, at them in my reflecting pool. Mari moved over to look. Elliot stepped just behind her and looked over her shoulder. There's, not that many? I looked all day, but only found these few. Well, you, see how pretty these are? Yes. You, would even be prettier if you had more. No answer. Elliot adjusted the yellow flowers a bit more along Mar-E's ear and inspected again. That's, better. Now, we are ready to go to the Lover's Lake. Lover's Lake was a favorite spot for young lions. It was a small, crescent-shaped oxbow lake. One of the meanders of the river got to a point where the river finally cut off the dry neck of the meander to form a lake. This made it a bit more private than walking along the river. They no sooner sat down and looked at the beautiful view across Lover's Lake when they heard rustling from behind the rushes on their left side. The two looked up and saw hyenas emerge and started to drink from the lake. There were 3 of them. After taking drinks, the hyena leader looked up at Elliot. Hey, Elliot, quite a nice coat of fur you got there, as shiny as the sun. Elliot would have appreciated the comment if it came from Mari, but coming from these 3, he knew it was an insult. What do they call that look? Snail suede. The other 2 hyenas started to laugh until one offered up another comment. No, that's fuzzy frizzle. You have to rub off a lot of frog slime and work it into your mane to get such luminous locks. More laughing by the hyenas followed. Elliot was a favorite target of the hyenas. They knew he was all roar and no bite. The duration of poking fun at Elliot depended on how bored they were. Today they were really bored. That is if it is his real mane. Maybe it is fake and stuck on. Elliot signaled Mar-E with a nod to the right to start walking backwards, away from both the lake and the hyenas. Mari understood, but couldn't return the signal as Elliot started walking away without waiting for her. Mari hurried up and then came up and followed alongside of Elliot. The hyenas also followed. Hey, Elliot, where you going? Yeah, Elliot, where you going? We gotta know. Is your mane real or fake? The laughing stopped as the hyenas got more serious. One of the hyenas grabbed Elliot and stopped him in his tracks. The other hyenas joined in and started dragging him back towards the lake. Mari wasn't too happy with this. Leave him alone. The hyenas ignored her. I say it's a fake mane. What do you say? No, it's real. See how it don't pull off. Could be real strong glue. Glue. Yeah, bro. Glue. Strong stuff. Mari stopped, turned around, and followed behind the hyenas. Leave him alone. Did you hear something, Butch? I think it's the other. The hyena called Butch let go of his share of Elliot long enough to react to Mari. Listen, girlie, we gotta find out if this here mane is real. Elliot could be an Eleanor. More laughing followed from the other hyenas, and then a let up in the laughing aloud for another crass reply. Yeah, girlie, we're doing you a favor. The hyenas took Elliot back to where they emerged from the rushes. That section of the lake featured a large muddy bank. Once sufficiently wet, all three pulled on his mane. Water should dissolve any glue. More pulling, but it wasn't going to happen. The lead hyena changed the action and pulled Elliot into the muddy bank and started rolling Elliot around in the mud. Oh, look at our good friend, Elliot. All muddied up. Let me clean that off for you. The hyena lifted his leg and proceeded to wash off the mud. Mari watched on, not sure what to do. Leave him alone. He's not bothering you. The hyenas ignored her again. One of the others protested to their leader. Hey, Butch, I might have wanted to eat that. Mari wanted to do something to help and tried to intervene. She tried to put herself in between Elliot and Butch. The lionette is here to defend you. I don't know why. It's not like we were tugging on something else to check for glue. The other hyena knocked Mari to the ground. From the ground, Mari bit into the hyena's leg. The incessant laugh came to a stop. The other two approached, but Mari's roar halted their advance. The injured hyena moved next to the two and spoke. I guess we know who wears the mane with this couple. Elliot, I don't ever want to see you at Lover's Lake again. Understand? No reply from Elliot. Hey, look. Mari's roar had caught the attention of some of the other lions. Even though the hyenas were not invited to the parade, they all recognized them as some of Animal Land's toughest cats. We better not see you again, Elliot. The hyenas made a quick escape.